Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Red State. This is another donation reward movie reaction for Venom 0027. And I want to actually explain something. I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but in case anyone was wondering why so many of these movie reactions have been for Venom, why like almost none of them, very, very few of them are for anyone else. It's just because Venom is consistently donating for them. It's as simple as that. And especially during the June double reward month, Venom donated quite a lot for quite a few different movies and some YouTube stuff and all, which I got to get back on doing those as well. There's a few more of those to do. But that's the reason why most of the movies that I react to have been from Venom. And that's fine. It just depends on who donates. It's as simple as that. That's how this works. And as always, donations are, let's shill that for a moment. Donations are always available. You don't have to do them during like a double reward month or anything, but you can. And donations are for anything. They can be for movies, shows, YouTube stuff, anything you want. And each donation you do gets you a reward. So if you make one donation, you get one reward, except in a double reward month, you get two for one donation. And it doesn't matter how much you donate, everything helps. No matter what your donation amount is, every donation gets a reward. And it's completely optional. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. It's only if you want and are able to. It's just a way to get you guys, to help you get you guys involved, and to allow me to see some things that you might want me to see. Especially things that I might not otherwise ever check out, either on the channel or on my own. There's been a lot of movies like that I've ended up loving that I would have never watched. A lot of times, some of them I've never even heard of. So, and that kind of segues into today's movie, because, yeah, I've never heard of this. I have no idea what it is. The movie Red State is completely unknown to me. I don't know when this came out. I don't know who's in it. I don't know who directed it. I know nothing. And to be fair, that's a good way to go into these reactions, because I have no sense of bias prior to seeing it. I feel like a lot of reviewers and critics these days go into films with this heavy bias, whether from seeing all these trailers or having some kind of like pre-thoughts on the film based off of either the actors in it, the director, or just the main plot itself. They know so much that they can form these thoughts before they even see the film. And admittedly, I've even done this. I've done this quite a bit, and I've been proven wrong on plenty of things in this regard. Some things, like, yeah, it ends up, I do actually end up believing that after I see the film. But plenty of other things, nope, my opinion completely 180s. But yeah, so I feel like it's better to go in as blind as you can, so that you just don't have that bias before you see the film. Some things you may not be able to avoid as well, but I try it at least to not watch too many trailers for films unless I already know it's like part of a series of something that I'm going to enjoy, like the MCU. If it's an MCU film, it's like, yeah, I'll watch the trailers. because it's like I already know I'm probably going to like it because most of the MCU films I like to some degree. There's very few of them I dislike. Um, but yeah, so if it's something completely new, unless I learn about the film through the trailer, like I did with like stuff like Bullet Train, then I'm not going to like go out of my way to look at a trailer. You know, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And some things I might even watch only one trailer for and never watch any more. Like One Piece Film Red. It's like I saw the first trailer for it. I'm completely avoiding anything else. Um, but yeah, so I don't know what this is. Based off the title, though, what it instantly makes me think of is politics. And I don't know if that's the intention here. Um, it could mean a number of things. But the term red state makes me think of political elections where a red state is a Republican controlled state. It's like it's majority Republican, it's majority right wing, and it's heavily focused on those kind of ideals and policies. Most times, a red state during an election, presidential or otherwise, will vote for the right wing candidate. Most of the time, they will elect right wing candidates for their state senate and everything ahead of left wing. That's not always the case, but a lot of the times. While a blue state would be for, the Democratic side. And the thing is, even with that kind of knowledge and that kind of idea, I still don't know what the film could actually be about. Because there's multiple different directions this could head, even with that kind of concept. So I don't know what it's going to be going for. I don't. It's kind of, and that's even assuming if it is even going to be going with that idea. So I don't know. And again, I don't know who's in this. I don't know anything about this film. But, I mean, I'm interested. And Venom has already stated, I mentioned this in the last one, but Venom has already stated that some of these movies are going to touch on some heavy topics, so I'm ready for that as well, just like I was with the last one, the last movie we did earlier this week. So I'm prepared for that. But yeah, I don't know what this is going to be about. I've never heard of this. I've never heard of a movie called Red State. And hell, for all I know, that might be like completely false. I might have gotten that completely wrong. I don't know. Who knows what this is going to be? So we're just going to get into that, into this, and hope for the best. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. Or to the movie, rather. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. I want to look something up with this film. Because this was very different than other movies I've reacted to or just plain seen. Honestly, I don't think I would know how to compare this to anything else I've seen. But there's one specific thing here I really want to see. Okay, I wanted to look up the budget for this. The budget was $4 million. Which is by no means a lot. Let me check here. I'll check something here. I want to look up a current movie that's not like this big special effects masterpiece or anything. A current modern film that's more simple, like a drama or something. Something that's not like, you know, an MCU film or anything like that. Or even something that's not necessarily like a big thing. The question is, I don't know what's like currently out. Okay, this one looks like, yeah, this one says mystery, crime, psychological, so let me check that one out. Okay, there's apparently this movie, I guess, currently out called Don't Worry, Darling. Let me check that. Because that seems to be one that's, like, not necessarily, like, super, like... Oh, this is that Olivia Wilde film, okay. Maybe this does have a lot of... I think in the trailers I saw for this did have a lot of things. But let's just go with it. Okay? So this movie has a budget of 20 to 30 million, right? 20 to 30 million. That's quite a lot. That's a pretty big one. Let's look at another movie that's out currently. Called Barbarian. I've heard you want to go into blind. I heard it's a current horror film, and it's supposedly you want to go into without knowing anything. I'm not going to look up any details here. I just want to check the budget. Budget, 10.5 million. So yeah, that's definitely a lower budget one. This one, 4 million. It was obvious. It was super obvious that this film had a super low budget compared to other movies. You could tell by the acting from most of the cast. You could tell by the direction, the camera work. Everything was very minimal. I don't know how to put it. Like there wasn't a lot of dynamicism. Dynamicism. I think that's right. There wasn't a lot of dynamic shots and scenes and stuff. It was very simple, a lot of weird cuts, a lot of like and this on here says this is an independent film, which yeah, it very clearly had that indie film kind of feel to it. So this was very interesting in that regard. Also, it lost money because it only made 1.8 million, by the way. This movie was very, very minimalist. And I think that actually served it well for what it was about. Having the style of it almost kind of be not quite found footage, but with the shaky cam and everything, and with the way it was handled, again with the direction, the camera work, and everything, it felt very much like one of those, like just a very independent movie without a big budget. It felt exactly like it is. And I think if they tried to have a bigger budget, better camera work, maybe even some more like really high level actors in it, other than, you know, John Goodman, I think it would have taken away from it a little more. Having it more simple, allowed the almost realism and grit to shine through. So according to this, this was directly inspired by Fred Phelps and all of that stuff. It was specifically inspired by something called the Waco Siege. Let me look this up just to be sure on this, because this is something I've heard of but don't know a lot about. So the Waco Siege, also known as the Waco Massacre, was the law enforcement siege of the compound that belonged to the religious sect Branch Davidians. It was carried out by the U.S. federal government, Texas state law enforcement, and the U.S. military between February 28th and April 19th, 1993. The Branch Davidians were led by David Koresh and were headquartered at Mount Caramel Center Ranch in the community of Axfell, Texas. Suspecting the group were of stockpiling illegal weapons, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the ATF, obtained a search warrant for the compound and arrest warrants for Koresh, as well as a select few of the group's members. The incident began when the ATF attempted to serve a search and arrest warrant on the ranch. An intense gunfight erupted, resulting in the deaths of 4 government agents and 6 Branch Davidians. And so, yeah, it escalated after that, and in the end, the compound was destroyed by fire, and 86 total deaths occurred. This was obviously a really big inspiration for this film. Like, you can see the direct connection, and obviously the direct connection to Westboro Baptist Church pastor Fred Phelps and all of that, which is actually directly mentioned in the film. And Smith claims that the point of view and the position are taken to the absolute extreme, which is very obvious here. Again, it's something I kind of talked about during the reaction. It's like, obviously, like, people in real life, for the very, very most part, aren't, like, taking it to this extreme. Even if they talk about doing so, they don't actually act upon it. But it's the idea of it, basically. The concept. And Kevin Smith has made it clear that this is to be considered a horror film. That with the subject matter and everything, that it is considered horror. And honestly, it's horrific. It's scary, but not in a way like monsters or slashers or whatnot, in a more of a realistic fashion. And I think that was important. I think that was exactly what it needed to be. And so I want to see also here how this was received. Apparently, it received mixed reviews from critics and has a score of 61% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I've talked about before on how seriously to take that, based on 92 reviews with an average rating of 6.1 out of 10. The website's consensus states, Red State is an audacious and brash affair that ultimately fails to provide competent scares or thrills. So basically the idea that it's not actually scary or thrilly or whatnot. Edward Douglas of Shock Till You Drop panned the movie, saying it feels like one of Smith's Twitter rants fleshed out into film, with equal portions of bile sprayed at both church and state. Which, I mean, I guess that last part I can agree to. Katie Rich of Cinema Blend, reporting in her review, messy, overwritten, visually stylish, but kind of a bore. More like Kevin Smith than it looks, because nobody ever stops talking. And it's not a horror movie by usual definition, more like a teen horror movie morphs into Waco disaster, which is what it was based off of. Jordan Hoffman for UGO said Kevin Smith, a wonderful public speaker and genuinely fun guy, has yet to master the basics of movie making. And it seems so on and so forth. There are some positive reviews, though. Todd McCarthy of The Hollywood Reporter said it is a potent cinematic hand grenade tossed to bigots everywhere. And Jeff Snyder of TheWrap.com said, the truth is I didn't really know what to expect from Red State, but regardless, I still had high expectations, and I'm pleased to report that the film lived up to them. It brings something new to the genre, and that something is faith. So, I kind of paused the reaction and everything to kind of give some thoughts on it, but let's talk about my reaction to this film and my, I guess you could say, connection to the subject matter. So as you probably noticed during the reaction, I kind of pointed it out myself. There were a couple points where I was kind of almost laughing and like kind of in this jovial mocking fashion, poking fun at this church and everything and making jokes about it. And as I said in the reaction, I want to make it clear, this is not out of a lack of knowledge about how serious stuff like this is. Again, stuff like this happens in real life. Maybe not to this degree, except by the most extremist of cults and shit. It's rare when shit like this happens. But unfortunately, there are plenty of churches and cults and, well, church cults that get scarily close to this. Again, there has been multiple pastors out there who have very publicly called for gays and trans people and just anyone like that to be put to death, to be executed via firing squad or electric chair or what have you, who in their sermons very publicly have called for this. And have even done the same for even the likes of just Democrats in general. Because, let's be completely honest here, the vast majority of the time, not all the time, but the vast majority of the time, they end up also being right-wing. Hence the term Red State, used for the title of this film. It's scarily common for right-wing, conservative, evangelical Christians to hold these bigoted beliefs. In fact, it's pretty much guaranteed. If they're right-wing, conservative, evangelical Christians, these are the beliefs they will hold. Again, they might not always go to these extremes, and they almost never do, but there are plenty who have called for, again, the deaths of people just based on factors like this. And it's horrific. And there's pastors like Greg Locke who even hold book burnings, public book burnings in front of their church and shit like this, who constantly spill all this vile, disgusting bullshit. And again, it's more common than you would want it to be. You shouldn't want it to be common at all. You shouldn't want it to exist at all. And unfortunately, it's way too close to a lot of things that I've seen. I grew up in the church. I mean, for a portion of time, my family was religious but didn't go to church. But when I was like in the end of 4th grade, beginning of 5th grade, we started going. And I don't know the entire reason, but we did. We started going to church, and I was at a very vulnerable young age where I was brainwashed, just straight up, into things. And while the belief, the general faith was fine, I was brainwashed and led to believe some terrible things. And I became a terrible person because of it. And for a long time, I was homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic. I was, even at some points, racist in some ways, and very much sexist. Because I was surrounded by people who raised me like that. Whether through family, whether through church, or just the people otherwise that I was made to be around. And so I thought it was natural. I thought that's how things were, and I thought that was right. And luckily, people I met, friends and whatnot I met, started speaking out against my beliefs. They started telling me I was wrong and calling me out on my horrible shit. And it allowed me to look into myself and discover I'm fucking shitty. I'm a fucking piece of absolute dog shit. And I need to change. And so I worked on myself. I took the initiative, having realized how terrible I was and what led to that. And I worked to change myself. And luckily, I was able to. Not everybody always is. I was luckily able to move past that and change my viewpoints, my worldviews on all of these different topics. And it's allowed me to discover so much about myself that I was holding back because of my bigoted worldviews. And it just realizing how wrong I was and realizing how brainwashed I was and freeing myself from that has made me happier than I ever had been before. Made me feel more free than I ever had been before. And it's why, even though I still am a Christian to this day, why I still believe, I still have faith, I also currently, this is why I speak out against all of these evangelical, conservative Christians. Why I kind of mock them. Why, when Greg Locke still had his Twitter account, I would constantly fuck with him. And report pretty much everything he ever tweeted. Which I don't know, I honestly doubt that my reports alone were enough, but I almost kind of want to believe that I'm part of the reason he got banned from Twitter. I just kind of want to have that, you know? And it's why when people, friends or whatnot, say that they're anti-religious, I understand and I get it. It's why I don't exactly trust most churches. And the only reason I'm at the one I'm at now is because, you know, they're accepting, they're loving of all people. We have trans and other queer people who serve at the church. We frequent a gay bar that is literally next door to our church. And we do all of these different kinds of social justice and just, you know, morally good kinds of acts and actions and services to help out. That's why I'm with this church, because it's a good church that actually understands the message of Jesus to love your neighbor. and shit. But unfortunately, most churches aren't like that. The vast majority of churches are terrible. And that's why so many people have turned away from the church. People who either grew up in it and were raised in it, or people who just never wanted to give it a chance in the first place. They turn from it because of what they see from the church. The people they see don't make them see Jesus, makes them see the devil. So seeing a film like this and seeing how honestly over the top and insane the people in this were, yeah, it kind of made me chuckle, kind of made me laugh and joke at them, because it's so over the top, but it's also so close to reality that joking about it, making fun of them, laughing, it is almost kind of a coping mechanism. Because there's way too many real situations that are way, way too close to this. And under the right circumstances, or I guess the wrong circumstances, could be pushed to take things this far. A lot of these churches are cults at this point, based on how a cult is defined and everything. Watch the YouTube channel Telltale for videos on all of that, on cults and various things in relation to that. Owen Morgan is the host of that, and he puts up some great videos dissecting all these different pastors and cult leaders and politicians and stuff. It's very informative. And you see a lot of this here. You definitely see the brainwashing with this girl, this daughter. But you also see her trying to break away from it. You see the connections to reality. You see how they're controlling and manipulating the situations, using these verses and almost kind of chanting, and the charisma of this leader to just kind of tie everything together, because people like charismatic leaders. They do. And this doesn't have a happy ending. It doesn't. The three stupid-ass teenagers, stupid, horny, really fucking dumb, but they're teenagers. They're fuckwads, but they're not, like, terrible people. Calling them fuckwads is a little harsh. I'll just say dumbasses. I'll just stick with that. They're dumbasses, but they're not terrible people. They didn't deserve to die. Especially the ways that they did. And none of them survived. All three of them died in the end. Two of them killed by law enforcement. Only one was actually killed by the church. Another one was shot by the sheriff, and the last one was killed by one of the TFA agents. So, and the girl was shot as well. And all she wanted to do was get those kids out of there into safety. Everything went wrong. Many, many people died. And people who didn't deserve it, very much so. That sheriff didn't deserve to die. like he was, yeah, committing adultery and everything, but and that's bad, but he didn't deserve to die for it. Especially like he was definitely like a closeted gay man, or maybe bi or pan, dealing with feelings that he was ashamed of, to the point where he at one point almost committed suicide because of it. And you see like the pastor calling out to him and everything and telling him, it's like, we'll reveal your secrets, like talking on the police radio or whatever, telling him, we'll reveal your secrets to your wife and to everyone else, and it'll ruin your life and everything. You see how much he breaks from that. He didn't deserve to die. Yeah, he shot first and asked questions later when it came to one of these poor kids, one of these poor boys who ran out. But to be fair, like the sheriff said, he was running out with this automatic weapon, this semi-automatic weapon or whatever, and it's like he had just had his deputy murdered as well. He was in pain and afraid and emotionally compromised. Honestly, he probably shouldn't have been there because of that. And it was because of that he took that action. And you see all of this other stuff, all these other characters get shot, both good and bad, and it's like, quote unquote, good and bad, because the government, outside of maybe like John Goodman and the one other agent who was like complaining about their orders and everything, outside of like those two, it's like the government were kind of painted in a bad light too, which fair. But yeah, it's like it's showing that like, oh yeah, there's bad people everywhere, and there's very few good people in between. But there were also good people on all sides there. You have to take that into account too. The girl who just wanted to save the children who were innocent, like they were definitely the better people of that cult. And the girl even admitted, like, she's done some terrible things, but at this point she wanted out. She was willing to leave all of this just to get those kids to safety. She turned on the cult. And even after that, even after her mother brought her back in and everything, she tried to do it again. Recruiting the one remaining boy who was kidnapped. And it's like she definitely was fighting back against the brainwashing that had clearly been done towards her. And she was choosing to go against it. And even if accidentally, she even took out her mother in the process. Which, honestly, was a good thing. And yeah, it bothered her, but it was self-defense and defense of another. And as I said in the reaction, it's like that is an excusable reason. Murder is never okay, but it is excusable if your life is literally in the balance. If you are going to die otherwise, you have a right to self-defense. And if you're defending another person whose life would be in danger otherwise, you have a right to defend them. I believe that. But only if it is that last resort. And it clearly was here. So, yeah, it's just, she was clearly good. And then again, on the agent's side, the sheriff was not a bad guy. He made a very bad mistake, but he wasn't a bad guy. And neither was John Goodman's character or the other agent. And honestly, the one other guy, the one who got shot first, like through the eye and everything, who I think John Goodman's character said, like, I have a piece of his skull in my leg and shit. It's like he didn't seem too bad either. a lot of those agents were probably good guys. But you also see the bad side of the government as well, the ones who were ordering the massacre in the first place from, the agent's perspective, the agent's side. And when you find out the reason, it's like, oh, we want to put them away for life. Well, we only gave the order because, fuck them. These terrorist scumbags don't deserve better. But it's like, we can't fault you for disobeying orders here and doing what you did. And it's like he's getting promoted for it. Because it's like what he did was right and good by disobeying orders there. And yet he's still finding out that they just wanted to kill everyone there just because. And it's like, yep, sounds about right for the American government. And then at the end, the entire thing with the horns and finding out that was just some eco kids, some marijuana planters and everything who are just fucking with the church because the church had been fucking with them and everything. It's like, that's just funny. That's just really funny. And like that entire time that scene was going, I'm like wondering, okay, what is that? And then it's like the entire thing about the horns and everything comes up. It's like, they're not actually doing that, are they? It's like that's not actually going to be legitimately how this ends. Apparently, according to this, there was an alternate ending where that is what happened. Where the rapture does occur. It does. I didn't read. It didn't say in what I read if the church is raptured, which based on biblical teachings they wouldn't be based on their horrific evil actions. But it doesn't say one way or another if that does happen. It just says the rapture happens and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse descend down, and it's like, oh. But I'm kind of glad it didn't go in that direction either, because it's like that would have been like a lot. And I feel like, again, it would have like devalued almost the message here, the very, how do I put this? The very intense and personal message that this has, and the themes and ideas centered in a world that everyone could relate to, by bringing like supernatural elements into it. Even if you believe in God and believe in that kind of stuff, it's like, I just feel like it would lessen the idea here for like the overall concept of what it's going for, if that makes any sense. But yeah, it was a very interesting film. I definitely had the connections to it with my life and with the things I've seen and to some degree been a part of. And it was really over the top, yet at the same time way too close to reality, and that's what's scary about it. That's what makes this a horror film. The fact that it is so close to reality. The fact that it is just this intense the entire time. And the fact that like there is no good ending. Like there's no positive twist that you can spin on that. It's 100% a bad ending. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of, what happens. With none of the 3 boys surviving. The girl dying as well. Like, the only solace you can bring out of it is that the kids seemingly survived, from what we can tell. Presumably, once the sirens and once all that happened, and John Goodman apparently headbutted the pastor, presumably everything at that point was resolved. No one else died, and it was all just everyone who was still alive was taken into custody and everything, which would include the kids. So I assume that they are safe and everything went well there. And that's a relief. That is like the only positive about how it ended. Um, but again, I think that it was important that it did end so terribly, so depressingly and darkly, because that's what gets this message across. It's just, it's the point. Uh, and yeah, obviously throughout this there was homophobia in it and stuff like that, and I feel like because of having been a part of and witnessed so much of this specific form of homophobia and everything from the church and all, because of how connected I am with that specifically, I think that's why it didn't bother me as much with this movie, and why, again, I was more laughing and joking about it, because it was something that I have seen, I have heard, I have been in churches that have been a part of that for so long in my life that I've almost become numbed to it. And whether that's a good or a bad thing is kind of up to you to determine. But it's like that kind of stuff presented in other ways bothers me a lot more. But because of the specifics of this presentation, I was able to deal with it. I don't agree with it. It's still terrible, but I was able to not get too emotionally upset while viewing this movie. So tell me in the comments below what you thought of this film, and I don't know like how much I've mentioned all of this other stuff about like my connection to this and all in other videos in the past, but I'm almost kind of wondering if I did mention all of this before and that's why you suggested this Venom. Because this is eerily similar to stuff I've seen and stuff I've been a part of and everything. It's just, there is a really strong personal connection here, and I'm wondering if that's why you recommended it. But even if not, even if it's just because you know my views on things based on what I've said otherwise, just in general, either way, I guess you could say I like this film. It was well made. It was handled properly. It was exactly what it needed to be to send the message and to share the themes that it did. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I enjoyed watching it, but I liked the movie in terms of how it was made. I don't know if I would ever watch it again. Maybe. It's not one of those films that I would be super sure that I would never watch again, but maybe I would watch it again, but I don't know if I really feel the need to. I don't know. Either way, like I said, tell me your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.